Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh of Severe Weather. Lots to talk about with some wintry weather next week and beyond. We're getting into March and we are not done with winter, not one bit. Let's talk about what we are going to be tracking here in about a week, actually, probably a little bit less than a week. And it looks like we'll have a pretty potent storm dropping much farther south than what we've been dealing with here over the last several weeks. Our high pressure ridge over the southeast is finally going to give way to colder air that is moving in courtesy of a stratospheric warming event that we had here recently. And areas much farther south are going to be looking at some snowfall, it looks like. And again, this is about 5 to 6 days off, so it will probably change, but I have to at least make a forecast at some point rather than wait until it's already happening. So here's kind of the area that I'm going to be highlighting for the potential for snowfall, and some of that could be significant by the time it gets up into the eastern Ohio Valley and up into the northeast. So things are definitely going to be getting busier here. Let's talk about what's going on this weekend first, then we'll get back to that next week's storm. And a major storm impacting Southern Cal and Central California. Very heavy snow and blizzard warnings are in effect over the mountains of Southern California and Central California, so basically the Southern Sierra Nevada. But we have winter storm watches, advisories, and warnings all the way up to Washington State across the mountains primarily. We saw snow falling a couple days ago all the way to the coast of Oregon and California, and very heavy rain as well, battering Southern Cal. Some tornado reports yesterday as well. So just a very nasty storm. The rain is beneficial, but a lot of it is coming too much too soon. The eastern part of the country is not completely clear of weather this weekend, but things are a little bit quieter for now. We do have kind of a clipper system moving out of Ohio into the mid-Atlantic states. We do have a winter weather advisory for some frozen precipitation this morning and into this afternoon over West Virginia and Virginia in the higher elevations mostly. And we will have some winter impacts outside of that area. Down south, it's still pretty warm on the Gulf Coast with a lot of moisture in place. We do have some pea soup fog if you are traveling I-10 from Beaumont over to about Tallahassee. That will impact you this morning, as well as on the Space Coast around Titusville, just south of Daytona, all the way down to Melbourne, Florida. All right. So let's take a look at the radar across California over the last couple of days. And you all can see from weatherbell.com here. And where'd we go? You can see kind of the evolution of this storm that developed on Thursday and started to hammer Northern California with heavy rainfall. You could see the rain picked up over the Northern Valley here Thursday night, and then Southern Cal got in on it Friday morning. Very heavy rain came down. We had our wettest day on record in Hanford in Central California yesterday, and now things are still evolving farther down the coast. Very heavy rain, very heavy mountain snow causing blizzard conditions. And the radar indicates just a very intense line of rain now moving through Orange County and far eastern parts of LA County into western San Bernardino County, California. So a disaster in the making here across California, and a lot of snow in places that aren't necessarily prone to seeing that much snow. Now, over the next couple of days, we are going to see some shifts in the temperature pattern. It is going to stay a little bit above average here in the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, but below average in New England, and well below average continuing across the western U.S. This is this weekend. It will be a chillier day today in the Carolinas and Virginia for sure, but that is not going to last too long. You can see that warmth starts to rebuild here next week. And let me see if I can do this day by day. Here we go. All right. Sorry, I had the wrong screen on. So you can see the cold that's lasting here in the east, and certainly much colder in the west. But as the week wears on next week, it warms right back up in the south. And in the central part of the country, Iowa and Illinois will be above average here as a storm moves through. And then it cools off again. And as we head towards the very end of next week, let's go back a model run here. You can see that the cold that is locked into the west on Thursday and Friday begins to push south and east as our storm system moves out of the Gulf states into the eastern U.S., and it is going to be turning quite a bit chillier from Texas to the Ohio Valley and then into the interior of the Northeast, right behind the storm system next Friday into next Saturday. And you can see Saturday is much colder in the area that's going to be impacted by this potential storm from East Texas right on through the Mid-Atlantic region and into the Northeast. Now, it's the beginning of March. It is still even though it's just the beginning of meteorological spring, it's still cold with respect to the rest of the year. So these below average temperatures certainly do support wintry precipitation, even in the Carolinas, Virginia, and Kentucky and Tennessee. Even 5 to 10 degrees below average gives you average temperatures in the 30s. So there will still be enough support for this precipitation that moves in to potentially be frozen. especially the farther north and east you get up into New England. So just the fact that it's near to slightly below average does not rule out the winter storm potential. And then as we get later into the weekend, it does warm right back up into the start of the following week, but some changes are coming. You could see the western US is getting colder again and reloading some cold air around the beginning of the following week. And the European model says that we are going to have a big flip coming across the central and eastern part of the United States here towards March 10th. And this could be a little bit soon, but it looks like right around March 10th, we've got a pattern flip coming. And the middle to second part of March, as we are starting March Madness, the basketball tournament, is going to be significantly colder than it has been. So February, we had temperatures that were 10 to 30 degrees above the average. Now, as we get to about March 15th through 25, we are looking at much of the eastern United States at 5 to 10 degrees below average. And that gets all the way down into Texas and Florida, by the way. So if we get some storm tracks farther south due to the fact that this colder air is moving through, we are not done with winter yet. And the groundhog may be celebrating a comeback victory here. I say that tongue in cheek because he's a stupid rodent, but still, there is a lot of model support for a colder pattern here that continues into the beginning of March or into the beginning of April. I'm sorry, before things start turning milder. So we definitely are not done with the cold yet, even though it was so warm last week. You can see this shifting is coming here right around the middle of March. The models flip. All right, so let's look at the coming days here. The GFS model shows a big storm out in California that is going to move onto the plains and produce severe weather here Sunday night over Kansas, Oklahoma, and North Texas. That is a very intense storm that moves up into Minnesota and Iowa. There'll be frozen precipitation. You can see freezing rain from central Minnesota over into central Michigan and southwest Ontario. That does avoid the area that just got hit hard and is still without power in southern Michigan, but does not miss northern and central parts of lower Michigan. You get north of the thumb, there'll be a lot of frozen precipitation. There's some model differences on what happens in New England, but they all show snow on the front end of the storm with then maybe a wintry mix or some light rain on the south coast. The GFS has quite a bit of a snowfall, though, across Massachusetts, northern Connecticut, and interior parts of New England. And a lot of that's going to be Monday night through Tuesday, and then that low lifts out. The next storm system moves into California here Tuesday night and Wednesday, then moves out into Texas with heavy rain and potential severe weather down south Thursday night into early Friday. And then on the cold side of it, some potential snow beginning over the lower Mississippi Valley around Memphis and on northward towards Paducah, and then getting more intense, tracking up through Ohio and especially central and western Pennsylvania Friday night. And then the interior of the Northeast could be dealing with a significant snowstorm late Friday night, early Saturday before it heads out. There are some differences in the model, as you might expect, with this being almost a week out. But the GFS has been the most consistent here from run to run. You can see the run before. Oh man, I don't know why I did that. But the run before had a major snowfall anywhere from western Kentucky right on up the Ohio River into western and central Pennsylvania and into parts of southern Maine. So the GFS has shown run after run after run that this storm is going to carve a lot of snow from maybe Oklahoma and Arkansas right on up the Ohio River into the interior of the Northeast and possibly getting into New York City and Philly on the backside. I say possible. This low track, if it shifts a little west, it's going to be more rain than snow for the big cities of I-95 until you get up into Boston, and then it's all snow. But if that shifts a little farther south and east, then we could potentially be dealing with major snow in parts of Maryland, northern Delaware, New Jersey, Philly, and up into New York City. So a lot of time for that to change. The other models, like the European, do not show the same track. The European kind of fades this first storm somewhat when it gets through Jersey here early next week and lighter snow across New England. Then the next storm track, you can see it's a little bit slower in getting things going here and farther south. Doesn't really bring the cold air into play until it gets up into Virginia and West Virginia here Friday night. And this would miss the Ohio Valley with significant precipitation and produce snow across the interior of the Mid-Atlantic all the way to Baltimore, D.C., and maybe in the central parts of Delaware. But a much different look from the European model. And I'll get back to this in a little bit here. The Canadian model is also in the same boat as the European. It's actually even farther down with a heavier snow and keeps it south of I-64. It has southern parts of Virginia and much of western and central North Carolina getting heavy snow. That may even sneak into Raleigh and Virginia Beach here. So the Canadian has this low pressure track so far south that it's too dry for anything to happen in the Northeast. The European is a little farther north, and the GFS model has shown for 7 straight runs that it's coming up the East Coast and heading out to sea south of Boston and Cape Cod. Now, the fact that the Europeans got it buried down here in North Carolina, but you look at the European ensembles, and they are much different. This is the first storm moving across the North Atlantic and off of New England. Here's Storm 2 over East Texas here Thursday afternoon, tracking up into the Tennessee Valley here for Friday morning. And then Friday night, it's got the average of the low pressure systems tracking right where the GFS has it off Atlantic City and then up through the benchmark towards Atlantic Canada. So the operational European says it's south, the GFS says it's north, the European ensemble average says it's right there with the GFS. So if I have to make a forecast, I got to take a blend of the consistent models. That's the GFS and the Ensemble Prediction Center. And that will bring us some potentially heavy snowfall. We'll look real quick here at the next couple of days. You can see we'll have some light snow moving across New England, and then another area of snow developing this morning over the panhandle of West Virginia, Western Maryland. That tracks down through Baltimore and into central and southern Delaware. We are going to see a little bit of snow accumulating in South Jersey here during the day today. This is about lunchtime, and this is getting into about the evening hours. Around 4 or 5 o'clock around Atlantic City and Cape May. We do have some light snow coming. And then as we get to tomorrow, another clipper comes down into New England and maybe some significant snow over southeastern Mass and just missing Boston with a second wave coming through at night. But our bigger storm is going to be moving into the plains here Sunday night and into Monday morning. And we'll see a lot of rain and maybe some severe weather with it as we get farther along. And as we look at the NAM model here, I can show you all a little bit farther on what I'm expecting to occur here. Let me go find it for you guys. Here's the 3K. And you can see storms tracking through Illinois into Western Kentucky and Indiana Monday morning, maybe a little bit of severe weather out of them. And then we'll have to watch this area in here for locally strong to severe storms Monday afternoon. Frozen precipitation across northeast Wisconsin, the UP, central lower Michigan, and that will move on into Ontario Monday afternoon. Here's snowfall totals today from the HRRR. You can see most of the snow north of I-80 and up into interior New England. There is a small area of a few tenths that could fall across Maryland, Delaware, and southern Jersey. It's not going to be much, but it could stick to the grass here before things move out this evening. The next storm tomorrow moves through New England, generally less than an inch of snow expected, could be a few higher amounts. But yeah, definitely a significant storm. Now let's take a look at the Euro here for next week. And we see a lot of snow out west again, multiple storms impacting the west, a lot of snow across New England and northern parts of Pennsylvania. Probably not central PA and on south, though. The Euro shows kind of that dividing line near I-78 and over to about State College and Williamsport. And then as we get on farther, we see our storm down south beginning to develop over the mid-Atlantic region. And this would be Friday night when most of the snow falls over Virginia, Maryland, into the Delmarva, according to the European. And you can see on the Euro, we see a general area of 6 to 10 inches of snow over Western Virginia, 3 to 6 across southern Maryland into the Delmarva on the European, and maybe snow as far south as Roxborough and Mount Airy in North Carolina, and even into the mountains as well. The GFS, though, run after run shows that this heavy amount of snow, this is the GFS from yesterday morning. You can then see a much bigger area showing up on the 12Z yesterday. The 18Z still pretty big from northeast Arkansas up into New England. The 0Z even bigger over Ohio and Pennsylvania, with many places getting over a foot according to the 0Z. And then the latest run does kind of go lighter here in this region, but still shows significant snow from parts of Oklahoma and North Texas on right up to about Louisville, Cincinnati, Columbus, Pittsburgh, and especially north central Pennsylvania, northeast PA, central New York into New England. So the GFS continues to show this area right in here has that potential of seeing significant snow. I'll go back to the 0Z. This is about as extreme as we've seen on the models. And you can see a maximum of 31 inches of snow over western Pennsylvania, right between Erie and Pittsburgh. So west central PA, like Butler, that area, 20 inches in Clarion, 18 in Williamsport, 16 in Poughkeepsie. Actually, it's a little north of Poughkeepsie. And even a foot around Boston. But you can see some amounts all the way down to Cincinnati are over 20 inches, 10 inches in Louisville, 15 in Western Kentucky, even 8 in the boot heel of Southeast Missouri on this run of the GFS. The run after it goes with much lighter amounts, but still has a significant storm. Going back to 18Z yesterday, so you can see the 0Z and 18Z aren't much different. And the 12Z, again, very heavy amounts. And then the 6Z crushed southern parts of Pennsylvania and northern Maryland with over 20 inches. Harrisburg, 21 inches, 25 inches around Frederick and down to the east of Johnstown. So, again, each run is going to waffle, but you can see the GFS is pretty much on this thing here, while the Canadian is not. I mean, the Canadian has it much farther south when we get into next week, with most of the snow buried over the North Carolina and Virginia border. So that indicates a storm track way down here south of Wilmington. The European ensemble has it up in here, right with the GFS, though, and the blend of the models for next weekend has that snow on the blend of the models. It has nothing down in here. Everything is in Pennsylvania, the Mid-Atlantic region, and back across the Great Lakes. So we have got quite a bit that's going to change here in the next several days. Let's look real quick at severe weather for tomorrow evening. We see an enhanced risk in Texas and Oklahoma, slight risk up into Kansas, and there will be some tornado chance as well, with some supercell storms possibly forming here in western Oklahoma. Maybe more of a widespread wind event, though, as we get through the evening hours across this region. And then as we head to Monday, a second area of severe weather forms in an area that I think is going to be maybe dealing with a snowstorm here Friday night. So severe weather Monday, snowstorm Friday night. Pretty common for the end of winter, I'd say. Southeast Indiana, southwest Ohio, central parts and eastern parts of Kentucky, with a marginal risk down here. Yesterday, the slight risk extended into western North Carolina. Today, it's been kind of trends back into this region and here. I think it might be a little bit overdone, but if we look at the winds aloft here on the GFS model, you can see kind of our huge trough that carves across the west here and then cuts up through Texas and Oklahoma here. As we get into the late part of the weekend, and then that cuts up. Oops, I'm sorry, I was too far out here. Cuts up across Oklahoma with very fast winds aloft, and I think there could be some severe weather in southern Illinois, western Kentucky Monday morning if this holds together, but the better chance is going to be here in the afternoon where there's faster belts of winds aloft form. Let's look here again as we look at the Central Plains and the chance for severe weather, beginning with a tornado risk potentially in the eastern panhandle of Texas and the Oklahoma panhandle, and maybe even sneaking into southwestern Kansas here around dinner time, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. And then that threat for tornadoes does wane, and we look at maybe more of a straight line wind threat here. From pivotal weather, you can see storms exploding over Texas and Oklahoma panhandles around 3 to 4 o'clock here on Sunday, and then expanding quickly northeast. This will be a fast-moving storm complex that moves through Ohio or Oklahoma here late in the evening, and then especially overnight, and expanding northward into middle parts of Kansas. So definitely a quick evolving situation here for Sunday night that we have to be concerned with. I could talk all day. I'm not going to. Have been about 18 minutes here, but I want to thank you for your time. If you could like and subscribe, we're going to update this forecast across the eastern U.S. next week. It will change. I hate to put something out this far out, but I think it's important, and it will be impacting a lot of folks that may have to travel late next week into next weekend. I just can't tell you how much and exactly where just yet. I would love to be that good, but I am not God. I do, though, want to thank God for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this morning, and for giving me health, and for giving me the drive to continue with this and allowing me to share what's on my hearts with you guys, and that is my faith in God. And I just want to say real quick that there's a verse that's been speaking to me this morning, Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith, we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. And I am a scientist, but I believe God put me here to spread faith through other people. He gave me the gift of faith. I do not know that this is all going to happen. I don't see it happening, but I believe God has a plan for everything, and that is faith in action. That is confidence that what I am hoping for, what I'm talking to God about, will occur. Not on my time, but on His time. Understanding that the universe was formed at God's command, that the earth was created, and all of us were created by God, and not just evolution, which is unfortunately being taught everywhere. That's what I personally believe. Genesis 1, I'm a Genesis creationist, and I believe that we cannot control the weather. All we can really do is study it and do our best to understand it, and that is because God has given us the gift to do that. And so I want to thank you for your time today. If you have any prayer requests, I'm happy to pray for you. I thank you for your time, and I hope you have a blessed weekend. I'll see you again Monday morning. God bless you.